Hello everyone, and welcome to the first RGB RPG's DM prep guide for Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. As always, these guides will have a lot of spoilers in them, so if you are a player in Descent into Avernus or you expect to be one, please go ahead and click away. But if you are a DM who would like some insight into how another DM may handle this adventure, stick around and check this out. So, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus is one of my favorite adventures to run. It's like huge, epic struggle against good and evil. These stakes are super high, and it really is like a very morally ambiguous and dark adventure if you want it to be, but there's always that little glimmer of hope in there to allow your players to not have to succumb to complete hopelessness. It's a fantastic adventure. I've run it a few times now, and every time it's been remarkably different, but still just this epic core of an adventure. Very morally ambiguous adventure. There's going to be a lot of situations that are difficult to find a right answer to, or they might not even have a right answer. Just the less crap answer, I guess. But yeah, so as always with these early DM prep guides, we don't have a whole lot of information for the characters yet. We really want to give them the opportunity to explore their characters and really try to learn about them themselves as they're playing them before we really start putting too much information here. By the second or third session, we'll have this more balanced out and we'll be able to really get a good picture of who these people are. But for now, we have Kaio, a rogue, Kroll is going to be a fighter, Trust and Althea are both warlocks, a celestial, and I forget what the other warlock is, but we'll go ahead and get to that in a minute. And then Anacola is going to be a druid. So we are going to be running a supplemental intro to this adventure. I would highly recommend that before running this adventure, you really take a good look at the introduction as it's written and see if you might want to change it. Not a huge fan of the introduction as it's written, as I'm sure you'll find in a lot of other DM guides and reviews of this book, that the intro is definitely one of its weak spots. However, there is an amazing supplement on DM's Guild. I would highly recommend that anyone that is able picks this up. It is Baldur's Gate: The Fall of Elturel. It is a wonderful little introduction to the city of Elturel itself. It really shows the players just what was lost to Faerun when the city was taken. And it gives the characters a chance to introduce a couple NPCs to each other, and really just helps make a more cohesive introduction as opposed to the introduction as written, which kind of just puts you in front of the gates of Baldur's Gate and says, oh, this terrible thing has happened, you guys have to deal with it. Instead, you get to see that terrible thing happen and maybe even form some bonds with the people of Elturel before it's taken down. So, couldn't recommend the Fall of Elturel more. It is a fantastic adventure. It takes about one session, usually about a session and a half for me to get through the entire thing, but that's because we do character introductions and the whole shebang before we get going. But yeah, highly recommend that. Couldn't recommend it more. But into the meat and potatoes of this prep guide. The players are going to begin their adventure just outside of Baldur's Gate, attending a meeting of local officials that have been called together to look into the Cult of the Dragon and their activities in the area. An entire town was recently sacked and looted, and there's been all kinds of different thievings happening on the road, different attacks on the road of caravans and things like that. And so the Order of the Gauntlet, the Flaming Fist, and the Hell Riders of Elturel have all gathered together to try and address this issue. The players are likely going to be tied to one of those. We're going to be really locking that in at the beginning of session 1 today, but essentially each of them are going to be associated with one of these groups in some way or another, or trying to interject themselves into this situation in one way or another. So the people that are gathered there are going to tell them all about this Order of the Dragon. We'll get a chance to introduce Rhea Mantlemorn to the situation, as well as Ulder Ravengard and Gideon Lightward. All three of them are going to be important NPCs, and we get to introduce them now as opposed to way down the line when we get the adventure is written. But eventually the characters are going to agree to go and check this out, and as they're going, they get a chance to see some of the really great things around Elturel. Night will have fallen over Elturel, but one of the great things about the city, one of the really thematic things about it, is that there is this second sun that hovers in the sky above the city. It always sheds soft light over everything that it can touch for miles around the city, and so a lot of the activity that happens around Elturel happens in the early evening. So as the players leave the tavern towards the spot where they assume or suspect the cultists to be, they get to witness a wedding in progress, and if they do decide to bear witness to hang out and enjoy the celebration for a brief moment, they'll be able to get an aid spell cast upon them to really help out in the next encounter that's coming up, or encounters, I should say. And yeah, so they get to see that wedding and they get to see how beautiful the surrounding countryside is, and they get to meet a little girl named Grace a little bit later. She's been chased up a tree, and the characters can hear this commotion happening as they're passing by on the road. And so they get to go, and this is their first combat encounter to go ahead and check out their new characters and their new abilities. We have a map that we made for this right here. So, yeah. That's all set up and ready to go for them. So yeah, pretty simple combat encounter. Little girl, teenage girl caught up in a tree, and a set of wolves trying to get at them, trying to get at the little girl up in the tree, so the characters interject and attempt it. Pretty straightforward. It's mainly a bit of stakes being set here, because they're going to be able to recognize this girl, especially the rainbow scarf that she wears. They could also potentially tame the tiny wolf that's hiding in the bushes during this whole encounter. They may see that wolf, and if they decide to, they can actually tame it and have a little wolf companion to travel around with. But yeah, so this little girl that's up in the tree, she is basically trying to gather money so that she can go to a school, and so she's going to try to talk the characters and giving her some money, all that kind of stuff, how she's going to be the next great mage and all these things. But when she leaves, when they part ways, we want to really leave an imprint of her on the characters. And the way that we're going to do that is by leaving a little thread of her rainbow scarf, either on the ground that a character can pick up, or if no one seems interested in that, they'll find one on their clothing later on down the line to kind of remind them of this person that they met. But yeah, so moving on from that, they eventually do find the location of the ritual site, the suspected location of this site. And Freya will ask them to see if they can track these cultists down and find out what happened. We'll do some survival checks and things like that. A bit of tracking to see if they can find them. And it'll all lead to this one site, and they will quickly discover that Cultists of the Dragon is most certainly not the biggest threat in the area, as they will find lots and lots of dead dragon cultists around. And then quickly discover a secondary group of cultists of the Dead Three, Bane, Ball, and Merkel, have more or less completely murdered every single member of the dragon cultists. As the players arrive, they're going to see the aftermath of this. They're going to get a chance to really see the cult of the Dead Three for the first time, and they'll be able to see these cultists essentially questioning the remaining member of the dragon cultists. It's really one of those tropes where, well, here's the bad guys, but the bigger bad guys have come in and kicked the asses of those bad guys. So it really establishes the Dead Three as a major threat to the region right away. That they were able to just walk in and kill the bad guys that you were supposed to go deal with. But yeah, I don't really expect this session to go much farther than that. But if it does, we are going to make our way back to Baldur's Gate, where they will get a chance to see the city itself dragged down into the first layer of the Nine Hells. That is the big climax of this whole section. Really the point of what we're doing here with this prequel, this prologue, to get them to see what happened to Elturel. And either by wanting to save Elturel, get it back, or prevent it from happening anywhere else, being able to see that calamity really does drive it home that this is a major issue that the players have to deal with. So that's the main gist of it. We have our non-player characters. We have Rhea Mantlemorn, who is going to be a major NPC. For anyone that does intend to run this, establishing Rhea Mantlemorn as a likable and respected NPC early is super important. We definitely don't want her to turn into a joke NPC, so be careful with how you roleplay her. Make sure that she has meaning to the party. She shouldn't really try to take on any major leadership roles, because I found that does build animosity between the parties if an NPC tries to take on a leadership role. But definitely have her be experienced. She knows her way around a battlefield, and she knows how to fight, and she is a valuable source of information and assistance to the party. At least for now, until we really start diving more into her character backstory about her and how she becomes involved later in the adventure. But I'm always a little bit torn on how I want to play Rhea. Still trying to figure out the perfect combination of character archetypes for her, but so far, I've decided on a combination of two characters. One very well known, Eowyn from Lord of the Rings, confident, knows her way around a battlefield, um, is not a pushover, and but still has a little bit of a desire to prove herself that she is worthy of the of her position. And Yelena, a character from a book series called Poison Study, and she is definitely the more leadership focused that I'm leaning towards as far as how she takes charge of a situation and things like that. Especially Yelena from second and third books. I think it's Fire Study. But yeah, so definitely going to be going over those books again to try and really meld Eowyn into Yelena as those two characters. But yeah, then we have older Raven Guard here, and he is going to be a super important NPC later. They just get to meet him right now. I really get big Zavala vibes, like Destiny 2 vibes from Older, so definitely going to be using that archetype for him. May explore that a little bit more later, but Zavala is definitely the first character that comes to my mind when I think of Older Raven Guard and how the book presents him to the game. Then we have Ontharr Froom, who is the person at the tavern when they first get there. He's going to be explaining the situation to them, stressing the importance of everybody working together. He's an Order of the Gauntlet higher up, so yeah. So he's going to be over the top with Torm demands justice be brought to these evil doers, and so on and so forth, that kind of stuff. Not too important. He's just really there to deliver the quest and to introduce characters to other NPCs. Notable locations. Again, when we do modules like this, we don't spend a whole lot of time here because it's so well fleshed out in the book. But for now, we just have Elturel, the surrounding areas. We really want to stress the perpetual light that dims the farther away you get from the city. And then we have the ritual site itself, which is going to be a very dark and spooky place. We have some music picked out for that. If you guys ever want a more detailed breakdown of the music, just let me know in the comments. But yeah, we have the first scary for this one. We have dire ambience for when Elturel gets pulled down. Bog standard for the tavern. This is our intro one here for the Middle Earth Dawn. And then Burning Village and Dire Ambience play in unison with the Fall of Elturel itself. Relevant stat blocks. These are all included in the supplement. The Baldur's Gate 12 Elturel supplement as well as in the book. But the Necromite of Myrkul. Light spellcaster. A little bit of a light kind of spellcaster light type of character. He does have some magical effects to him. He mainly just swings a mace around and does heavy damage with it. A Fist of Bane, who is essentially your I'm gonna hit it with my stick type of character, carries a shield. And then the Nightblade of Baal. This is the dangerous one. And when you're exploring, when you're trying to run this adventure, basically anything that involves these guys, really read their stat block, because their damage output can be brutal, especially if they get that lucky crit. If this was going to be one of those situations where a level 1 death happened, it would more than likely be because of one of these Nightblades. So very careful. Let your players know early on that if you do plan to run this as a super deadly encounter, that there is the potential for character death early. But yeah, they're super dangerous. Be careful how you use them. And remember that they are all just people. They may want to run rather than fight to the death. If they've downed somebody, they may just try to slink away into the darkness, especially if your characters get a chance to see just how dangerous they are. Leaving with their lives may be more valuable than killing a bunch of people and dying themselves. So just be aware of that. The Nightblades are very dangerous. Now, items and rewards. The rainbow thread I put on here kind of as a reminder to myself that this is something that the player should have before we get to see the So we're going to have that scarf down in front of them to signify that she was there when it happened. We have the Bone of Animation. The Necromite of Myrkul is going to have that. That's the reason we have the skeleton stat block up there as well. The bone is a cool little item that if they take it, they can summon a skeleton to fight beside them whenever they need it. Pretty cool one. And then we also have an opportunity for them to pick up chainmail and a shield. They are, of course, both marked with Hand of Bane, Black Hand of Bane. So it might be a little bit risky for the characters to hold on to those without first concealing those marks. But then for our campaign map with a more structured campaign like this, we could definitely have a good idea of where we're headed. We want them to get to know Elturel a little bit. We want them to witness just how dangerous the cultists of the Dead Three are, and we want them to see the fall of Elturel, to really get the stakes embedded in their minds of the whole city was just dragged to hell, and we need to do something about this. And after that, they travel to Baldur's Gate with Rhea, or without Rhea if for some reason they don't like her, they don't want to travel with her, but Rhea is going to Baldur's Gate one way or another, and their paths will cross again. Yeah, that's the adventure. That's the session that we have today. The first session of this is definitely more linear. You know, it's a real prologue. We really just want to get the feel for what's going on around Elturel. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. And as always, we will see you.